So recently I watched Sean McLean, aka Zaranyzerak's recent video he did, which is part of his Z-RANT series on his Zaranyzerak YouTube channel. I'll link it at the end here. And basically he unloaded in that video, not only on the trashy, screwed up release of the SatAM Complete series by Ncircle. Not only did he basically unload on that, but he also unloaded on Chris Johnson, the head of product management at Ncircle. And why did he unload on Chris, you might ask? Well, because basically Sean showed an email exchange between both him and Sally for All Twitter user Rich K. And in this I guess you could say email exchange between them, Chris basically, at first the conversation seemed to be, okay, seemed to start off on the right foot, but then it devolved, if you will, into something that basically felt like Chris was slapping the fans in the face. And that Chris had not a single iota of an understanding that when you release shows like this, specifically around the anniversary of their existence, that you are not marketing to the kids of today. That instead you are marketing to the kids of yesteryear, the kids of the 80s, the kids of the 90s, the kids of the very early 2000s, people of my generation, of his generation, Rich and Sean's generation. It seems that Chris, apparently doesn't have an iota understanding that that's who you're marketing towards. Because in the email exchange, Rich, Sally for All Twitter user Rich, went back and forth with Chris, asking, inquiring, and asking about, okay, what about the Sonic OVA? Will we see that? Which apparently, until somebody gets the rights to that, that's in limbo hell. Or what about Adventures? What about SatAM? Will we get complete series releases of those, after the Underground release happened? And more specifically, will we get SatAM? Will we get Adventures? And will we get Underground on Blu-ray? And again, Chris's response, Chris Johnson, the product manager at Ncircle, his response was essentially, like I said, a slap in the face of the fans. Because basically he came out and said, look, we have no plans. First of all, he basically came out and lied, saying they had no plans for any other future Sonic releases, which was BS, because here's the SatAM Complete Series release. And then secondly, he decided to come out and say, that there's no reasoning and no market, if you will, for putting a 30-plus, 40-plus-year-old show, or shows, if you will, animated or live action, mostly animated, on Blu-ray. He basically said there's no reason to do that, all because, what, you could say you have it on Blu-ray? He said basically there was no reason whatsoever, marketing and financially. He basically said something to that effect. And this is what really got Sean's blood boiling. And when I heard and Sean read those email exchanges, it got my blood boiling. It did. It got my blood boiling. Mostly for the fact that how, again, going back to what I said earlier, this guy obviously doesn't have one iota clue that when you're releasing shows like Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic SatAM, Sonic Underground, or even shows from the 80s, like let's say, Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, or Inspector Gadget, or what other show, Jason the Wheeled Warriors, okay, or Cops, if you will. It's like he doesn't have one iota clue if you will, that when you're releasing those shows onto physical media, or even attempting to put them onto a streaming platform, that you're doing it not for the kids of today. No. You're doing it for the kids of yesteryear. Kids of Sean, Rich, and my generation. Kids of James Sullivan, Jaime Toots' generation. Kids of Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critics generation. You know, those are the people you're targeting. The kids that are now adults, the kids of yesteryear that are now adults, those are the ones, these shows being released on physical media, digital, or put on a streaming service. Those are the people you're targeting. You know, not kids of today. Yeah, there are kids of today that love Sonic. There's no doubt. But but basically they're more into Sonic Boom, which is going to be a decade old, 10 years old, believe it or not, this year. You know, and Sonic Prime. And Sonic Prime. Those are the only Sonic shows they really care about. I mean, we're talking about a generation of fans, of Sonic fans, believe it or not, that, you know, care more about what they see in IDW Sonic than whatever occurred in the Archie Sonic. Even though fans like me and fans like Sean and Rich would love to see Sally and Bunny and Antoine and Dulcie and Rhoda in IDW, because we know they're an integral part in Sonic's history. But yet you'll have that new generation of fans being like, oh, we don't need them. We have Tangle, we have Whisper. And yeah, those are cool characters, but you need to do more with them. Oh, we don't need Sally. We don't need Bunny, or we don't need Sally being a leader-like figure. We got Lanolin. Yeah, she's great, but Lanolin's arc is she's still learning. The point is that generation of fans, you know, they kind of get it, but they're more in favor of the now of Sonic, not of what made Sonic what he was in the past, that we as adults nowadays grew up with. You know, again, it's like he doesn't have a clue, one iota of a clue of, you know, what market these older shows that they put on physical media and digital media and all that, they're targeting. He has no idea. No idea whatsoever. You know, it's like seriously, you know, somebody needs to, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but somebody seriously over at Ncircle needs to knock this guy upside his head and wake him up, point him in the direction of Discotech, point him in the direction of Disney, point him in the direction of Warner Brothers, and say, look what they're doing, you know, wake up, that's the direction to go. And oh, by the way, they're doing it to target the older audience. I mean, you look at Disney, for example. Did they have to put Rescue Rangers out on Blu-ray? No. Did they have to do it on 4-disc? No. But why did they do it? They did it because, one, of course, to help promote the movie that they put on Disney+, but two, they did it because they knew what audience they were targeting. That audience, the movie itself was targeting, was my generation. That's why they did it. You look at shows like The Jetsons and Josie and the Pussycats. You know, and some people might say, well, those are done because of the film prints. Really? Really? The film prints? It feels like it's just all the original episodes in the original television format slapped onto Blu-ray with better, and because of being put on Blu-ray, look a lot cleaner and more, I don't know, newer. The bit rate basically went up. You think he would notice that two of the biggest corporations, studio entertainment companies in the world, are doing something that he says is not profitable, but yet it is. And Discotech is running away like a thief in the night doing it. They are. They already have 2 Sonic titles under the belt when it comes to it. Sonic X and Adventures. And with Sonic X, they did it twice. They did it with the English dub and the original Japanese uncut dub. Because people wanted it. I mean, Sean said it best. Sean said it best. What Blu-ray does, you know, with its codec, the AVC codec and all that, compared to DVD's codec of MP-2, what it does is it helps clean the image up. It doesn't remaster it, it just bumps the bit rate up. It makes the image look fresher, cleaner, and better. Makes it feel practically brand new, if you will. I mean, here's what gets me. Here's what gets me, okay? And I mentioned this in the audio video I did last week, okay? Here's what gets me. You have WildBrain. Somebody over at WildBrain. You have somebody over at WildBrain basically take their time and effort. And I don't know if it's just one person or it's a group or a team of people. But you have, you know, maybe a team. But you have a team of people take their time and effort to basically up-convert in a bit rate kind of way all the original Sonic SatAM episodes to 1080p. They started slowly by having it at 480p, then a few years later they bumped it to 720p, and now they have it at 1080p. People are taking their time and effort at WildBrain to do that. And they didn't have to. And here's the other thing. You have a person here on YouTube called Project 4K AI. Project 4K AI. Taking their time and effort to remaster a lot of classic programming from the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. You know, they're taking their time to up-convert them to 4K. They are. Now, they could be using a software like online-convert.com. They could be using some kind of, you know, software they purchased that allows them to convert in the best quality a lot of stuff to 4K. Whatever the case may be, they are taking the time and effort to give us several 4K versions. A 4K version that's 16:9 full screen, if you will, and a 4K version that's 4:3. They are basically trying to give us the best quality. And what really gets me is you have WildBrain themselves, who are formerly Dick Entertainment. You have them and a team of whoever they got, as well as you got this person or maybe a team they're involved in. You know, basically doing what Chris Johnson said is not feasible. And it's like, seriously, it's like, who are you trying to preach to? No one. No one. You're trying to preach to no one. Because basically what you're saying is nonsense. Because here's the thing too. We are now in an age where not only is SD on Blu-ray, SD on BD, SD on, standard definition on Blu-ray acceptable by all places, even the major studios. But we're in an era to where now you could take that BD, which stands for Blu-ray, out and go and replace it with 4K and say SD on 4K. And you know why? Because basically the codec and the dual layer, triple layer, whatever it is that comprises of 4K physical media, bumps the bit rate up a lot higher than Blu-ray. And you could take, basically, you could take, and here's what's crazy, okay? Here's what's crazy. You could take those two discs that Discotech did for Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, those two discs that they did for Sonic X, the Japanese cut and the English version, you could take those sets and with 4K, you can have them on one 4K disc and the quality would look better than they did on Blu-ray. We're in that kind of an age. And people would buy it. Because not only could they say, yeah, we got it on 4K and everything, but you know what? They would buy it just because all the extras would also be able to fit on there. all the extras, the interviews, the behind the scenes stuff, the commentary and all that would fit on there. They would. And again, this is what really makes mine, makes Sean's, makes Rich, makes anybody that watched Zaranyzerak's Z-RANT video, or heard what this guy said to Sally for all Twitter user Rich K, or even listening to this right now. This is what makes our blood boil. Because this guy, obviously, like I said, is not paying attention to what the other places are doing. Now, again, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if maybe this guy is upset at the fact that Discotheque took a shot at them when in the promotional material for the release of Adventures on Blu-ray, that they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to do a lot better job with this release than the previous releasers." I don't know if he's upset about that. I don't know. I don't know. But again, what he needs to understand is that when you're behind the release of things like, let's say, Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, like, let's say, Jason the Real Warriors, Cops, when you are behind them, like I said, when you are behind them, behind the release, you need to put effort into said release. You can't just be lazy about it and be like, they're not going to care as long as it's got the name slapped onto it. No! Because the people that won't care are the kids and teens of today's generation. What you need to do is be reminded of who this is going to be targeted towards. Somebody needs to talk to you and say, hey, Chris, whoa. We need to talk. We need to talk. I need to tell you that, when we're releasing Sonic the Hedgehog, the Saturday morning cartoon is a complete series, right? Yeah, why? We need to put a lot more effort into just slapping the episodes onto 2 discs. We need to put them on 4 or 5 discs. Oh, why should we do that? Because we're targeting, because who we're actually targeting will be the adult collectors. They're the ones that grew up with the show. Somebody needs to do something like that. They do. They need to do something like that. Because I'm going to be honest with you. All right? If you have Disney, like I said, and Warner Brothers, even Universal, coming out and doing SD on BD releases, just like Discotheque's doing, it's like, you need to basically wake up and realize, that there is an audience out there. There is a genre, a fan base out there of people that grew up with the series originally, with these shows originally. You need to remember that. You need to be, told about that, acknowledged about that. You need somebody, like I said, to slap you upside the head. Because again, here's the thing. What makes you think it's so not necessary to do this kind of stuff? Again, like I said, we are now in an era where Discotheque, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, whoever, that's going down that SDBD rabbit hole, we are now in an era where you could change it up from being SDBD to SD4K. We are in that time frame now. We are. And it's time for anybody that thinks along the same lines as Chris Johnson, the head of product management at YouTube. They, along with him, need to wake up and realize, okay, maybe there is a market. Maybe we should test it out. Or maybe, I don't know, tell WildBrain, hey, we don't want this license anymore. Sell it to somebody else. And guess what, WildBrain? Maybe you should sell that license, a distributing license, to Discotheque and watch the magic happen. I mean, that is why you're seeing now people coming out and saying hashtag Discotheque for SatAM. That's why you're seeing it. Because again, For somebody to have the gall to come out and say there's not a market for this is whatsoever. You know, or we're not just going to do something because people want to say, oh, we have it on Blu-ray too. It's like they need to pay attention to the outside world. They need to pay attention to what others are doing. Because if not, they're going to get bit in the rear a lot harder than they could have ever imagined. Karma is going to come slapping them upside the face, slapping them upside the face and kicking them in the rear when they realize that, oh, there is a market for that. There is. And again, what's crazy is you look at, 16 years ago. 16 years ago. And it wasn't even a big anniversary. I mean, what was it? What? The 20 wasn't even the 24th anniversary yet, or the 28th. It was what, a little over a year from the 25th anniversary? A little over a year. I think it was the 25th. No, not the 25th. It was what? It was not even the 15th anniversary. That's right. We were not even in the 14th year of that show's existence. Its 14th anniversary. We were not even in the 15th anniversary. And that show got a lot more love by Shout Factory than I don't think anybody's ever shown it since. The fans were involved. The fans were involved. They got credited. We got interviews with Jaleel White and the late Ben Hurst. We got extended to deleted scenes from the Doomsday Project and Druid Hedge. It's like, here's the thing. The Shout Factory, like Discotech, understood the fans and said, yes, this is a set for the fans, not just to make a buck. And you know what's crazy? Like I said originally in the previous audio video, this set that's out now, this set's only $15. Yeah, that's cheap and everything, and it's pretty much, if you can't get the original Shout Factory release, probably the best direction you can go. But guess what? Sometimes paying a higher price for good quality is the best way to go too. Because I remember when that original series came out, and it was on DVD in 2007. Midnight release, I got it. And then I got various other copies later on. Kept an unopened one till this day. To this day, and I've shown you it. An unopened one. To this day. It's part of my collection. And those all cost me a lot more than what this cost. And why? Because basically Shout Factory valued quality over quantity. They valued the consumers and their fans, or the fans of said product, over just making a quick buck. That's why it cost a lot more. A lot more. And all I'm going to say is this. I'm going to say this in closing. If I'm WildBrain, I take the license of Sonic SatAM away from Ncircle. I take the license of Sonic Underground away from Ncircle. I contact Discotech right away, and I say, please fix this BS that they put us through right now, and give the fans and us, the people that basically sold or gave the rights for distributing to those bastards known as Ncircle, give us the quality release on SD on BD. No, not SD on BD, Discotech. No. Take it a step further. Give us the respect, give the fans the respect, give the show the respect it deserves by putting it on SD on 4K. Do that. Show it the love that it deserves, that the fans have been showing it for years, decades, and show Ncircle how it's done. And you know what? It shouldn't even be Sonic either that they take, the distributing license away from. No. They need to take Jace away. Jason the Will Warriors. They need to take Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats. They need to take Cops and any other geek entertainment show they have under the Ncircle distributing license. They need to take it away. Take it away right now. Take it away. Give it to Discotech. And again, as I mentioned earlier, watch the magic happen. But that's all I'm going to say in response to Sean McLean, Zaranyzerak's recent video, his Z-RANT, if you will. Give me your thoughts down below. What did you think about, what he had to say and what I have to say in return? And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you all later.